Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope y'all are doing well today. So for today's video, we're going to be doing another everyday cool tone makeup look. And I'm saying another one because I did kind of recently do one on my channel. But for today's look, we're going to be using a full face of nothing new. So I just pulled out a bunch of products that I have used them in the past. I know that I like them, but for whatever reason, I just have not picked them up in a long time. So I'm going to show y'all what products I use to come up with this cool tone look that I think is wearable for every day. So if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for stopping by, and again, welcome. My name is SonyaNicole and I post new makeup videos every single week, including some stuff for makeup lovers who are 40 and over. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, please make sure you subscribe while you're here. I would love to have you join and I would be so grateful for your support. Okay, you guys, let's jump right into it. Okay, I'm gonna start out with like a super throwback foundation. This is the Maybelline Fit Me Dewy and Smooth foundation. I bought this a long time ago, but I think I only used it once and just never picked it up again. I bought this when the Maybelline Superstay foundation came out, and I was wondering if I could mix the two together, which I never did. I don't know why, I just didn't. So I'm gonna use this today because I do remember that this was a pretty good shade match for me. Now, just like with the other Maybelline foundation, the matte and poreless one thing I don't like about this is, as you can see, it doesn't have a pump. So it's a little difficult for me to determine how much I'm using, but I'm trying to use like a half a pump. I do remember the Superstay one, that one does have a pump, but this one and the matte and poreless one does not. But outside of that, like, I can't remember exactly why I never used this. After that one time, I just didn't. So I said, let me give it a try today. And I think this is like a pretty good shade match. So I'm kind of surprised that I didn't pick it up a lot more. I think maybe because back then I used to use like mostly matte foundations because I have oily skin, and it really wasn't until recently that I started using like more hydrating finishes. So maybe that's what it is, because this one really does have like more of a dewy finish to it. I'm gonna put just a little bit more on. I wonder like how often people still buy this one and the matte and poreless one, because I feel like if they're still selling really well, they really should just start putting pumps on these bottles, because that would make it, you know, so much easier. So I'm just gonna build up on my cheeks a little bit more. This is like a really good shade match. I don't know, I might have to keep this one out and play around with it a little bit more. I definitely have foundations that are a better shade match, but this one is pretty good. Just in case I forget to mention this in my intro, I did change my lighting just a little bit. All I did was kind of like adjust my lamp heads, because I feel like this is a little less light on my face, so it's not quite as drastic. I'm trying to make it so that what you're seeing is like true to color, I guess. So let me know if you notice a difference between this and like any of my other videos. I'm trying to just do what I can to like make the viewing experience a little bit better. I think I'm gonna get a new tripod too. You know, one of the things that I don't like about my videos, you see how like you can only see like from my neck up? That really irritates me. But my camera is as low as it can go with the way that things are set up. So I'm actually gonna get another tripod that will allow me to lower my camera, because my camera, I don't know if y'all can tell, but it's like on an angle. I'm kind of like looking up at the camera. It's not quite at eye level. So, but anyway, with the lighting, let me know if you see a difference with the lighting. Okay, so I finished with my foundation and I went ahead and did some of my eyeshadow on this eye. So I was going to use my Smashbox Photo Finish Lid Primer today. This used to be like my everyday lid primer for a very long time, but I haven't used it in a long time either. So I was going to pick it up and use it today. But this basically needs to be thrown out because there's hardly any product in here. And what is in here is just like really dried out. It was like really like almost like scraping on my eyelid because it's like really dry. So I can't use this today. So I had to go ahead and use my regular MAC paint pot. This is what I use in almost every video. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use this to prime my lid. And for my eyeshadow today, this is kind of like the inspiration behind this whole video today. I'm using the Pretty Vulgar Nightingale palette. This is what it looks like. To me, this palette kind of screams like, I don't know, cozy snow day or something. It's like a very like smoky, cool toned palette, I guess. So yeah, this is what we're going to be using today. All right, I feel like it's a little easier if I hold it upside down. So I'm going to start off with this shade here, and this is going to be my lid color, my main lid color for today. And this is like a very cool tone brown color. It has like a really like noticeable like silver tone to it, almost like a taupey color almost. And then I'm going in with this shade here. This is a matte gray shade, but it looks like it has like a hint of shimmer in it, but it's basically a matte gray. So I'm gonna put that on the outer part of the lid. Let me know in the comments if you would be interested in like a roundup of like all of my favorite everyday cool tone palettes, because I know when I do like cool tone looks, some of you guys comment that you kind of want to experiment with cool tones, but you're kind of like apprehensive to do it. So I feel like if you had some like everyday cool tone palette options, maybe it might be easier to experiment with those. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. Okay, without picking up any product, I'm going to pick up this small blending brush and I'm just going to blend kind of like right in my crease area. I couldn't find this brush for a very long time and I felt so lost without it. This is the Morphe, the M506 brush, and this brush is really good for me because I have like very limited eye space. So some of my brushes need to be kind of small and detailed. And this is the brush that I always use to go right up in this area. And the brush just kind of like disappeared, and then maybe 2 months later it just reappeared. So I'm very happy to have found it because this is like the perfect blending brush for this step for my eyes anyway. I'm also taking some of that matte gray shade and putting it on the outer part of the lower lash line. Okay, I'm picking up a bigger blending brush now and I'm gonna mix this matte shade here. This is like a matte taupey shade. I'm gonna mix it with this matte brown shade over here. I really wanted to do brown on the like outer part of the look, but I kept thinking that this brown would be just a little too dark, a little too smoky. So I'm gonna mix it with that taupey shade just to lighten it up a little bit. And then I'm gonna use that to kind of like buff around the entire look. I do feel like I picked up a little bit too much brown over here. So I'm just going to see if I can lighten it up with a little bit more of the taupiness. I think I got maybe a little bit of that gray mixed in right in that area. And I'm also buffing underneath that gray shade on the lower lash line. That just helps to buff that color out a little bit. Okay, and the last thing that I'm gonna do, I'm picking up my small blending brush again. This is the one that I use to go into my crease. I'm going to blend out right where the colors meet each other on my lid, just to make sure that those are nice and blended. And whenever I blend right here, I like to take the color that's on the outer part of the lid and I like to kind of like drag it over the first part. For some reason I like that direction better than doing it the other way. I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter, but I just like for this color to kind of overlap the first color. Okay, so I'm going to finish up with the eyes a little bit later on. So now we're going to move on to concealer. And I'm very excited about this concealer because I feel like it's been probably over 2 years since I've used this. This is the Nars Radiant Creamy Concealer in the shade Chestnut. So this one is one of the big ones. I also have a mini one here. I feel like the big one is probably pretty much done, but this one is brand new. But let me see what's in here because it it has been a minute since I've used this. This used to be my absolute favorite concealer. Yeah, there's nothing in here. I don't know why I keep these things. Like, yeah, this is something else that should have been thrown out. I'm just gonna go right into my mini. So this used to be my favorite concealer ever until I came across the Too Faced Born This Way, the super coverage concealer. Prior to that, this used to be the only concealer that I would use. And as you can see, I think you guys can make out that this concealer is like really nice and pink, which is what I need. All right, I'm gonna take my foundation brush to blend on the chin and the forehead like I always do. This concealer does have a matte finish though, but it's one of the few matte finish concealers that I feel like I can use on my under eye area and it doesn't like totally dry it out. And then I'm just switching brushes so that I can get the corners of my mouth and the under eye area. And I usually drag my concealer like up to the sides of my nose. I usually have marks there because I wear glasses all the time, so you know, just to cover them up a little bit. And I'm gonna put on a little bit more of this concealer. One thing I am noticing though, like lately I've been using my Estee Lauder concealer and I do feel like that one gives me more coverage than this one. But like back when I was using this like all the time, this was pretty much like all I knew. I didn't really have anything to like compare it to. Okay, now I'm just blending that second layer out. And then I'm also gonna take this concealer to drag it up this way to kind of give me that lifting effect, but also kind of like clean up the edges of the eyeshadow. That's why lately I've been doing my eyeshadow before my concealer, just so that I can also use the concealer to like clean up on the edges. So something else that I'm noticing with this concealer, I do think it is a little brightening, but not quite as brightening as like the two other concealers that I use like pretty much on a regular basis. But speaking of brightening, I am going to go in with a powder that should help with that. So this is the Nye Luxury Powder, and this one is in the shade Rose Petal. This powder is like really special to me because it's like my first pink powder. I remember when I came across this, like I didn't know that powders came in pink. So I was very happy to have found this. I got this off of Amazon. So I'm just picking some up on a fluffy brush. Lately I've been setting my eyes like this instead of using my damp sponge. The last video that I did, I set my eyes with this brush just because I forgot to wet my sponge, but I did like it a little bit better. And I do know that I typically use like less powder in the wintertime anyway. So I feel like my next handful of videos, I'm probably gonna be setting my, my concealer with this brush instead of my damp sponge. I'm gonna set the rest of my face with my Too Faced powder foundation slash setting powder. This one is in the shade Maple, so it's the same shade as the liquid foundation that I use. And this one, you do have to be kind of careful with it because lately I have been setting my face with the Fenty powder foundation. I've been using that as a setting powder instead of foundation. But that one, I feel like it doesn't add quite as much coverage to your face as this one does. So this one you do have to be like a little bit more careful with it because I feel like it will quickly add more coverage to your makeup. But this one is supposed to be a powder foundation slash setting powder, whereas that Fenty foundation is marketed like just as a foundation. This one is supposed to be both, but I do feel like it kind of quickly adds on a little bit of coverage. So just, you know, you got to go kind of light-handed with this one. So this next product, I can't believe I forgot about this, but this is the CoverFX Perfector Face Palette. I got this from BoxyCharm a ways back. This one is in the shade Medium Deep, so it comes in this one, and they also have a lighter one for lighter skin tones. So this shade here, this is meant to be a finishing powder. Yeah, it's meant to be a finishing powder, but I used to use that shade like crazy, as you can see, as a blush. So that's what I'm going to use today. This is going to be my blush. And then this shade over here, this is meant to be a contour shade, but I think it looks a lot more like a bronzer because it looks a lot warmer. So I'm going to use this as my blush, and this is my contour for today. The one thing about this blush though, it does have a little bit of shimmer in it, but I think it's like really subtle, like you can barely see it. This one, like for this to have like the color that it has, it ends up giving me just like a wash almost on my cheeks. But I do still go a little light-handed with this one just because of that shimmer. And it looks too shimmery to me to use as a finishing powder, but that's, you know, what it's meant to be. So I want to go kind of light with my blush today, because even though I want my eyes to be, you know, every day, I don't want them to be like super smoky and all that. I do feel like I still have a good amount going on my eyes to where I don't want to overpower that with my blush. So, all right, and now I'm dipping into that brown shade to use as a bronzer. Same thing with this, like they advertise this as a contour. I mean, this is just so red. Like, I don't see how anybody could contour with this, but because it runs red, it's a really nice, I just put like a little too much right on the center of my forehead, but because it runs red, it is a really nice bronzer shade. And I used to use this bronzer a lot. And I'm just getting the sides of my nose with this as well. Then I'm gonna soften the nose bronzer back out with my foundation brush. Whenever you have to like soften something up or you added too much and you're trying to like take away, it's always good to use like residual foundation, because that will help blend it out, but also help kind of like mesh it into your skin tone a little bit. I'm also gonna take this and kind of like pat over this area just a little bit right in the center of my forehead. I brought that bronzer down just a little bit further than I wanted to, so I'm just gonna kind of like fuse them back together. I wasn't gonna use a setting spray today because with the weather just being colder lately, I haven't been using setting sprays like every time I do my makeup, but then I figured since my foundation does have more of like a dewy finish to it, maybe I will go in with a matte setting spray. So this is the Rimmel Stay Matte Fix and Go. This is the primer / setting spray. So I'm gonna set with this. And I don't have a whole lot of setting sprays, but I do really like that one. I just don't really use setting sprays on a regular basis. So it's been like a really long time since I picked that one up. Okay, so for my mascara and eyeliner, I'm gonna do them off camera like I always do. But I'm gonna be using the NYX Matte Liquid Liner in black. I used to use this in like every single video until I came across the Hank and Henry liquid liner from BoxyCharm, and then the Rare Beauty liquid liner. But prior to that, I used to use this all the time. And I'm going to be using the black Opal Super Volumizing mascara. I've used this a few times, but it's been like maybe like a good like 4 or 5 months or so since I picked this up. So I'll do these off camera and I'll be right back. Okay, so my mascara and eyeliner are on. So to finish everything up, I'm going back into the eyeshadow palette, and I'm gonna pick up this shade over here. This is like a creamy white shimmery shade, and I'm gonna use that for the inner corner for today. And then like I always do, I'm just gonna let it drag into the lid just a little tiny bit. I just feel like that helps to kind of open my eyes up a little bit more when I do that. Okay, and to finish everything off, I'm using another product that's like a really super duper throwback for me. This is what I used to call the infamous MAC Chestnut. This is the MAC Chestnut Liner, and as you can see how small it is. I used to repurchase this thing like crazy, but I used to make sure that I used up as much as I possibly could because I was repurchasing it so much. So this is just like a standard brown liner, and I call it the infamous MAC liner because I feel like everybody at some point has used the Chestnut Liner. I know a lot of people nowadays, they like to use the color called Cork, but I feel like back, at least when I started getting into makeup, everybody was wearing the Chestnut Liner. So I'm going to start off with lining my lips with this. I feel like the only reason I stopped using this is because it must have been when I came across the NYX liner in brown. I feel like it's the same thing and it's a lot cheaper, but I used to repurchase that thing like crazy. And then to finish everything off, I'm going to be using my Fenty Gloss Balm in Diamond Milk. I honestly don't know the last time that I used this. Like, I have so many Fenty lip products, and when I got this used to be kind of like an everyday lip color for me because it's kind of colorless, so it goes with everything. But for whatever reason, it's been like a few months since I picked this up, so I'm gonna finish off with this. So even though this is like a colorless lip gloss, it has a whole lot of shimmer in it, and I think it ties in really nicely with like all of the shimmer that I have on my lids for today. Okay, you guys, and here is my completed everyday cool tone makeup look using a full face of nothing new. I really hope that y'all enjoyed the video today. If you did, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe before you head out, and I'll see y'all back here for my next one. Until then, take care. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.